Story 1. The phone calls from upstairs. Claire Patterson was a quiet 17-year-old high school student who often babysat around her small town. The night she went to the Miller residence, it was cold, foggy, and unusually silent. The house was large, built in the 1950s, and it creaked every time she moved. The two Miller kids were already asleep upstairs, their soft breathing echoing faintly through the baby monitor. Claire sat downstairs on the couch, a bowl of popcorn on her lap, scrolling through her phone. Everything felt normal until the old landline phone began to ring. It startled her. The loud, shrill tones seemed out of place in the calm house. She hesitated for a moment before answering. "Hello," she said. The line was silent for a moment before a deep, rough voice whispered, "Check the children, Tenant Ungup." Claire froze, staring at the phone. She told herself it was a prank, maybe some random call, but there was something about the voice, low, raspy, and deliberate, that made her uneasy. She got up, peeked through the window, but saw nothing outside except the empty front yard shrouded in mist. 15 minutes passed. Then the phone rang again. She picked it up, her voice trembling slightly. "Hello?" This time the whisper was slower, clearer, and colder. "I said, check the children." A chill ran down her spine. She hurried upstairs, heart thudding against her ribs, and opened the kids' bedroom door. Both were sleeping soundly, undisturbed. She stood there for a while just to make sure, then went back downstairs and locked every door. Her hands were shaking now. She called the Millers, but no one answered. At 11:42 p.m., the phone rang again. She didn't want to pick it up this time, but the ringing was loud, relentless. She grabbed the receiver and shouted, "Who is this? Stop calling me." A soft laugh came through the line, and the same voice said, "Don't yell, you'll wake them up." Then the call ended. Terror gripped her. She immediately dialed 911. The dispatcher tried to keep her calm and told her to stay on the line while they traced the call. A long minute passed, then the dispatcher returned. Voice urgent and loud. "Claire, get out of the house. The call is coming from inside the house." Claire's legs nearly gave out. She dropped the phone and bolted upstairs to grab the children. As she opened the bedroom door, she heard soft, heavy footsteps creaking down the hallway, coming toward her. She scooped the kids up, ran to the bathroom, locked the door, and waited, holding her breath. Outside, the footsteps stopped right by the door. She could hear slow breathing, deep and ragged. Then a faint, scratching sound, like nails against wood. The children started to whimper. Claire covered their mouths gently, tears running down her face. Moments later, flashing red lights filled the windows. Police burst inside. They found muddy footprints leading from the attic to the children's room and an old phone extension left off the hook upstairs. Whoever had been calling her was in the attic the entire time. Story 2. The man in the window, Jesse Turner, was 19, studying nursing at a nearby college. She often babysat for a family who lived in a quiet suburb near the woods. That Friday night, it was raining heavily. The parents were going to a late dinner, and Jesse was asked to look after their 1-year-old son, Noah. The house was cozy, the baby sleeping peacefully in his crib upstairs. Jesse made some tea, turned on the TV, and sat in the living room. Outside, the rain hid the large glass doors that led to the backyard. Every now and then, lightning flashed across the sky, lighting up the yard for a split second. That's when she saw it. A reflection, faint but unmistakable, a man's face, just behind her in the glass. She spun around, heart pounding, but there was no one there. The next flash of lightning came, and this time she saw more clearly. A tall man stood just beyond the patio, his face partially hidden by a hood, staring directly at her through the glass. She gasped, rushing to lock the door. Her hands were trembling so badly that she dropped her phone before she could call anyone. When she finally picked it up, she dialed 911. The dispatcher told her to stay hidden until help arrived. But before she could move, she heard the faintest sound: tap, tap, tap against the glass. She slowly turned her head. He was standing closer now, face pressed against the window, fogging the glass with his breath. A slow, twisted smile spread across his face. Jesse ran upstairs, grabbing the baby monitor. The baby was still sleeping, but the image on the monitor flickered static, then darkness. She rushed to the nursery. The window there was open, rain dripping in. Her stomach dropped. The crib was empty. "Noah!" She screamed. She tore through the room, searching. The lightning flashed again, and she saw it. 2 muddy footprints near the window. She turned, panicked, and suddenly heard faint crying from the closet. She pulled it open, and there was Noah, unharmed, wrapped in his blanket. Relief hit air, but then she noticed something written on the wall above the crib, scratched into the paint with something sharp. "Nice house." Her phone buzzed. The dispatcher said the police were almost there. She ran downstairs, still shaking. When the officers arrived, the man was gone, but they found shoe prints all around the property, circling the house multiple times. He'd been watching them long before Jesse ever saw him. The Anderson family moved out a month later after neighbors began reporting a tall man watching houses from the woods. Jesse never babysat again. Story 3. The house that wasn't empty. Megan Hill was a college sophomore, desperate for extra cash. When she got the call to babysit for the Green family, it sounded perfect. Easy money, a quiet evening, and a beautiful new house on the outskirts of town. The mother, Mrs. Green, was friendly and calm, telling Megan their daughter Emily was already asleep upstairs. "She's a deep sleeper," she said. "You won't even hear a sound." After they left, the house became oppressively quiet. Megan sat in the living room, sipping hot cocoa, scrolling through her phone. The walls were covered in old family portraits, not the Greens. The people in the pictures wore clothing from decades ago. She figured the house must have belonged to someone else before. Then she heard its soft, slow footsteps coming from above. She froze. The Greens had said only Emily was upstairs. Megan hesitated, then climbed the stairs to check. The hallway was dimly lit, the air colder than before. Emily's bedroom door was slightly open. Megan peeked inside. The little girl was fast asleep, the blanket pulled up to her chin, but the rocking chair next to the bed was moving, back and forth, slowly, creaking with each swing. Megan's mouth went dry. She whispered, "Hello," but there was no answer. She stopped the chair from moving, turned off the light, and went back downstairs. As soon as she sat on the couch, the house phone began to ring. She frowned. Who even used landlines anymore? When she answered, she heard static, then a faint child's voice whisper, "Why are you in our house?" She froze. "Emily?" she asked softly. No reply. Just a faint sound of breathing on the other end. Then a second voice, older and rougher, said, "You shouldn't have come here." The line went dead. Her heart started racing. She grabbed her flashlight and crept back upstairs, trying not to make a sound. Emily's door was still half open, but this time, the bed was empty. She whispered the girl's name, panic in her voice. Then she heard giggling, faint, distant, coming from somewhere higher up. The ceiling, the attic. The narrow attic door hung open at the end of the hall, a thin string dangling down. Megan hesitated but climbed up, the wood creaking under her steps. Her flashlight flickered, barely cutting through the darkness. In the corner stood Emily, wearing her nightgown, her back turned. "Sweetheart," Megan whispered. "What are you doing up here?" The girl didn't answer. She just pointed behind Megan and whispered, "They don't like you." Megan turned slowly. 3 tall figures stood there, pale, hollow-eyed, with mouths that seemed too wide. They didn't move, didn't blink, just stared. The temperature dropped instantly, her breath visible in the air. The figures began to step forward in perfect unison, their movements stiff and unnatural. Megan screamed and stumbled down the stairs, slamming the attic door shut. She ran to the front door, but it wouldn't open. No matter how hard she turned the knob, it stayed locked. Behind her, faint whispers began to echo through the house. She could hear Emily's voice somewhere, singing a soft lullaby. When the Greens came home hours later, they found Megan lying unconscious in the living room, the front door wide open, her flashlight broken beside her. Emily was asleep in her bed, calm and unharmed. The police investigated, but nothing made sense. There were no footprints in the attic, no evidence anyone had been there, and when officers went to check, they couldn't even find an attic entrance. The house, they confirmed, had no attic at all.